Hey fam, today we're making a pain in the ass sourdough pizza that took 3 freaking days. Was it therapeutic? Still deciding, was it traumatic? Oh, for sure. We begin with the holy trinity of sourdough chaos: 12 grams of salt, 315 grams of water, and 450 grams of fancy flour I can't pronounce properly. And the sourdough part, though, it's not here yet. At least not for the next 2 hours, just vibes, hydration, and gluten development while I pretend I know what autolus means. And the flour, Caputo Doppio Zero. Let's mix with this, a true half-legend. She was once whole, now she's just handle and rage. She used to be longer, not so emotionally fractured. We call her Mache Slam. She doesn't mix, she mashes with intent and slams like the dough insulted her. That's all she has left. Now for what's left, the soft part of the story. She used to be flexible, now she just flops and clings. She was once part of Mache back when love meant something, now she scrapes the bowl. Gently, quietly, like she's cleaning up after a breakup. We call her Softy Flow. Time to close the lid and wait 2 hours. Pick a lid that's easier to open than mine, unless you enjoy full body effort and a mild identity crisis. And don't get too comfortable. This is just the first of many long, pointless waits ahead. Welcome to sourdough. Speaking of the devil, time to add 90 grams of sourdough starter. It's crusty, bubbly, and smells like it's planning something. I've been feeding this thing for 2 months, every single day. Flour, water, more water. And if you skip a feeding or mess up the timing, it punishes you by smelling like vinegar and shame. For the first few weeks, it gives you absolutely nothing. No rise, no excitement, just silent disappointment. Time to shape this dough into something vaguely round. Wet your hands first, just a little. Too much and the dough gets offended and turns into soup. In my case, this took an eternity. The starter wasn't even properly mixed. And I'm not teaching, I'm just trying to survive. Although I don't know if this is normal. But half the dough stayed on my hands, so there's that. The general idea is simple: slap and fold, slap again, fold again. And at the end, a few gentle stretches. You know, for the gluten, stretch and fold like yoga for dough. Except everyone's tense and nothing's flexible. Finally, it's starting to look like something vaguely similar to pizza dough. Not good, not impressive, just recognizable. Somehow I think this counts as shaping, let's both pretend it does. Meanwhile, Sleepy Flo does her usual damage control. The bowl looks better, my confidence does not. My hands are covered in dough, obviously. And now, we wait 30 minutes. Because of course we do. After the first rest, it's time for the dough's gentle wake-up call. The lid comes off and a small bowl of water goes nearby. Just enough to keep hands from turning into gluten traps. With damp fingers, it's time for a few stretch and folds. 4 or 5 are usually enough, even if they're clumsy like mine. The motion is simple: grab one edge, stretch it upward and fold it over itself. Rotate the bowl and repeat, working your way around like you're pretending to know what you're doing. By the last fold, the dough usually starts feeling more cohesive. Like it's finally considering becoming actual pizza. The goal here isn't perfection, it's building gluten structure without tearing the dough apart. Once folded, the lid goes back on, another 30 minutes of nothing. Because gluten, apparently, is dramatic and needs its space. Final stretch and fold, for real this time. At this point, the dough is more elastic, a bit firmer, and finally starting to behave like dough. It stretches more easily now, especially with 2 hands, but it still needs a gentle touch. Pull to hard and it tears like bad decisions, and yes. Another 30 minutes of existential waiting. Once the folds are done, the lid goes back on. Because sourdough isn't slow, it's personal. 30 minutes later, something moves in the background, quietly judging. We ignore it, much like everything else in this recipe. Next, the dough needs a clean bowl. A little oil is essential for the container and the hands. Just enough to stop the dough from sticking and to make shaping less of a personal attack. It's a common step in pizza prep, especially before cold fermentation. Pre-shape, gently stretching the surface of the dough and tucking it underneath. To build some tension and encourage a rounder form. Think of it as guiding the dough toward emotional stability. Once shaped, it goes into the oiled bowl, covered and straight into the fridge for 24 hours. Because apparently, pizza is now a lifestyle. A long, cold, slow-moving lifestyle, full of false hope and flour. Next day finally comes, but let's not pretend this means pizza is anywhere near ready. This is just another step in the psychological warfare known as sourdough. Now, confession time, my dough didn't rest for 24 hours. It rested for 48. One extra day of fridge therapy, and honestly, what's the worst that could happen? I wasn't about to throw away an entire day of emotional labor and bowl scraping. Surprisingly, the dough looked fantastic. It is smooth, puffed, confident. Like it knew it had aged well, and wanted me to know it. No collapse, no drama, just cold, structured promise. Divide in 3 parts, more or less equal. Mine came out to about 270 grams each. Give or take the bit stuck to my fingers, the bench, and my sense of dignity. No scale stress, just get them vaguely the same size. After all this, perfection is optional. Pizza is not. With a bit of oil to stop the chaos from sticking. Each dough piece is lifted with care, or fear, really, and given to small slaps on the counter. Why? Good question. Apparently, it helps realign the gluten and wake up the dough before shaping. Or maybe it's just emotional release disguised as technique. Either way, it feels mildly aggressive and oddly satisfying. Then it's time to shape each piece into a ball, gently, always gently. The goal is to stretch the outer layer of dough and tuck it underneath, building surface tension without destroying the precious air bubbles trapped inside. This technique is often called tight shaping or bowl shaping. You're basically coaching the dough into becoming a responsible adult. The movement happens on the counter, stretching the top, curling it under, turning, repeating, until the dough tightens into a soft, bouncy orb with a bit of structure and zero attitude. Do that for all 3 portions and they'll sit there like doughy triplets, round, oily, and full of potential. Once shaped, each dough ball gets a light dusting of flour. Then comes the flip, seam side up for the final closure. With oiled hands, fold each edge into the center. Like sealing a soft little envelope full of gluten and false confidence. Some call it stitching, to me it's just dough trying to hold itself together. A gentle roll helps reinforce the shape. Just enough tension to convince it to stay round. Then it goes into an oil container, seam side down. To rest in peace and pretend everything's under control. It won't be, but let it dream. Everyone deserves a moment of delusion. Repeat for all 3. 3 sealed, slightly smug dough balls, ready for their final nap. Quiet, glossy, and full of false confidence. For whatever reason, a bit of olive oil goes on top. Mostly to stop a crust from forming. Cover with a towel and back into the fridge. Another 24 hours of cold suspense, yes again. And finally, it's pizza day. I already forgot I wanted it. And if I'd known what was still ahead, I probably would have quit yesterday. The plan was simple. Take the dough out and wait, yes again, around 2 hours until it reaches room temperature. Then, flour everything in sight, bench, hands, dough, self-esteem. At this stage, you're supposed to gently press from the center outward, pushing the air bubbles toward the edge to help form a puffy crust during baking. That's the theory, anyway. In practice, I didn't exactly nail it. But I did manage to lift the dough and stretch it by hand, which at this point felt like a win. I kept switching between pushing bubbles to the edge and awkwardly stretching the dough by hand. It was messy, uneven, and slightly personal, but I wasn't prepared for what came next. At the peak of my pride with witnesses and everything, the dough was stretched roundish and almost beautiful. For a brief moment, I believed, and then came the one thing I feared most. A hole right in the center of the dough. Almost fully stretched, almost perfect, and then betrayal. A single tear may or may not have been shed. What mattered is that I was going to eat this pizza. Hole or no hole, dignity or not, rescue attempts were made, involving moves that vaguely resembled sewing up a sweater. Delicate pinches, quiet desperation, and a silent prayer to the gluten gods, and surprisingly, they kind of worked. The dough held, barely, emotionally, questionable. But this pizza was happening, even a hole could stop it. Into a cold cast iron skillet, on its way to an oven at 275 degrees Celsius. No fancy pizza stone, just heat and hope. And to extra hands that save this operation from turning into a dough avalanche. Heroes don't always wear aprons, sometimes they just show up in frame. Because here we like our toppings with a hint of slime. Finally, time to decorate the masterpiece, store-bought tomato sauce, of course. Cheese goes first, don't ask why, it just felt right. Some ham fat, a bit of ham, we're flavor-focused, not broke. Black olives and canned mushrooms, into the oven to 13 minutes at 275 degrees Celsius. Your oven may vary, the stress won't. And here it is. Finally, dough. Better than expected. Toppings? Hard to ruin a cholesterol bomb. Thanks for sticking through the chaos. Bye.